Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this short video, which I made in response to well, it wasn't a tweet because I don't do Twitter, but on mine's a post from our great member of this YouTube content creating fraternity, Yellow Flash, where he discussed the difficulty of getting a copy of the Beatles Mono recordings box set, and how expensive it is and how difficult it is to get. So I thought, interesting little topic to make a short video on. But it's at this point that I must reveal that I lied in the intro. This is not vinyl from the vault. This is a CD from the Crypt. So my apologies. There won't be no vinyl today. It's purely CD collectibles. So back in the 9th of September 2009, obviously the number 9 being very significant in Beatles lore, particularly for John Lennon fans, and the White Album, a set of remastered CDs and eventually vinyl was released of the Beatles recordings mastered in mono. Monaural or monophonic sound. And so why was this significant at the time? Well, up until that point, let's go back to the 60s. The Beatles recorded the vast majority of their albums and singles for release in mono, as opposed to stereo. Back in the early 60s, when they began, stereo was still it wasn't unknown, but it was still fairly in its infancy for popular music recordings. The vast majority of records were released, mastered for mono and released in mono, with stereo mixing and being done as an afterthought. So if you look at the original Beatles UK release, their first album, Please Please Me, it was mastered. They spent a lot of time and effort mixing it for mono, releasing it in mono, and the stereo was done in just a space of a couple of hours after, just as an afterthought. Not really seen as a big deal. And in fact, the Beatles, up until Yellow Submarine soundtrack album, and then Abbey Road and Let It Be, everything else was originally mastered for mono by the Beatles and mixed for mono. In fact, they had a bit of a thing about it themselves in that they spent so much time, like for instance with Sgt. Pepper, making it to sound good in that one speaker coming out in mono, that they felt a little bit that the stereo thing didn't work for them, and it made some of the stuff sound a little bit tinny and separate and naked. They didn't particularly like it that much at first. So as I say, everything up to Yellow Submarine, Abbey Road and Let It Be was originally meant to be heard in mono. A lot of effort was made in releasing it that way. So as the late 60s arrived and the 70s wore on, stereo became the standard for all recordings and all record releases. And these mono versions were confined to the older LPs that people had in their collections. And so when CD arrived, the original CD releases by the Beatles were all those stereo versions, and certainly were not remastered for modern digital stereo. So later on in the 2000s, the people in charge of the Beatles recorded output decided to fix this EMI, basically. And first of all, they did a remastering for all the stereo versions, which you can get in this CD box set of the complete Beatles stereo recordings. But that was also released on 9th September 2009, but that's not what I wanted to talk today. I wanted to talk about specifically the Beatles mono, the mono releases, which came in a lovely box, which we're going to take a look at live. It had every mono album in it, and these are the original British LPs, not the American ones, which differ up until Rubber Soul era. So what this contains is the British LPs. And they did this lovely little box. Now, apparently, they originally, when I bought it, because I pre-ordered it at the time, they originally only meant to release 10,000 of these, and they make it a limited edition. Naturally, those sold out instantly. So EMI did announce that they were going to make more. They still said it was a limited edition, so nobody actually knows specifically, what the final number released was. But I mean, it was certified platinum in the US, and platinum usually implies, what is it, 1 million copies or something. So it's hard to say. Regardless, it is still relatively hard to find. This is the vinyl set that you can see on screen right now. The previous cover that I showed in the last image was the mono, was the box CD set. One of the things I'd like to point out is that there are a lot of counterfeits around that you can buy of these because they're so hard to get, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I show you my actual copy. But yeah, the vinyl version, which is even harder to get, looks like this. You can see the raised box at the top. So that was also released and is extremely expensive, hard to get. Now, Yellow Flash was implying that he couldn't find a copy for less than about $1,000 US of the CD box set. There do appear to be somewhat cheaper versions of that available. However, as I say, there are a lot of counterfeits out there, so I would just suggest be very careful if you want to buy this particular set. So some of the other differences that were made in not just releasing these in remastered mono versions, but they actually removed a lot of the compression that was on the earlier Beatles recordings. Compression was something that was used an awful lot in the old vinyl days back in the 60s to keep the grooves narrower, not getting too wide, so they compress the sound to limit the frequency range. That was removed in these CD releases, so that was a good thing. So you could actually, as the time went on, it was the same for the stereo releases in the big stereo box set, you could actually hear a lot more in the sound than was originally heard back in the day. So let's take through the magic of fiddling about with cameras. Let's take a little look at the actual box set itself. Hey, this works. So a little side camera I've got. So there is what the actual CD box looks like for the Beatles in mono. One of the things you can tell the counterfeits apart from the real thing is that sometimes this square border is not centered. So it'll be off to one side rather than exactly centered. Another thing is that the Apple logo will be not quite as light. It'll be a little bit darker than the one that appears on here. So just looking around the box, that's the side there, Beatles in mono. And on the back, just a little bit of the other side of the Apple. So let's take a look inside and open it up. First of all, it came with the backing of, inside the plastic wrap, this was on the back, so a little description of the 10 mono albums that were released are all in here, plus an additional album, which contains all the singles and B-sides and other oddities that were also originally released in mono, but were not on those albums, because the Beatles were very, very insistent up until pretty much the end of pretty much the Abbey Road era, when they did include them, in keeping all their singles separate from the album releases. So that creates a lot of material that you can only get either in the back in the day, a 7-inch single, or then eventually were gathered together in compilations. So they've got them in here as an album with the with all those interesting little singles and B-sides. So we'll take a look at that too. Now, another thing about the counterfeits is that this sometimes is stuck to the back of the box. So that's another dead giveaway that it isn't the original real thing. So putting that aside, what you have in here in this fantastic setup is, and they were in the box originally in order of release with a really nice booklet. Again, if it's a counterfeit, these would not look so neat and tidy. They would not be the same height. They would not be in the plastic sleeving, resealable plastic sleeving, and they would not necessarily have the correct script on the back. So let's just take the little booklet out first of all and take a look at that. Beatles Mono. There's this fantastic shot of them from 1963 back in Sefton Park in Liverpool, where I've been once. Back in 1963. How clean cut those lads were. And of course, inside there's a fantastic description, page by page, of what this release is for, each recording, some of the details about the mono side of it, and then I particularly found interesting when it gets to the mono masters disc, which is a 2-disc by the way. So it gives you a rundown in the narrative, track by track, of where those were sourced from, the different versions you can get, for instance, of Across the Universe and so on. So really it tells you everything about these tracks you would want to know in a little booklet. Actually there talks about that very extremely interesting B-side, You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, which is one of the daftest Beatles songs ever done. It's Brian Jones playing saxophone on it, and it was recorded over a number of sessions between 67 and 69 by Paul and John. It's actually a really crazy number if you ever hear it. Kind of a dub reggae feel to it. There's some fantastic pictures in here. There's recording the Revolution, fast version of Revolution film promo at Twickenham Studios in 68. Of course, that's where they then went on to record Get Back and Let It Be and Such Cold Discomfort. But obviously they used Twickenham a lot for their film promos before then. And then the fantastic picture I like, which is this one. This is April 1969. It's a really great picture. I think that's John's rolls they're sitting in front of. They're all looking pretty groovy there. So let's take a little look at the some of the actual discs themselves. So what they've done, back to front, is got them in order of release. As I say, these are the British releases, the original ones. They've got them all in this great resealable plastic. They've done them in the style of the original vinyl album releases, with the fold-over packaging that you used to get. So they'd fold it over to seal it up. They've got the complete liner notes. Everything looks exactly like it did on the originals, and right down to the please to use proper cloths to clean your vinyl with, and so on. So you've got these fantastic little fold-over packages. Beautiful color reproduction, fantastic color. You can see the mono in the top. And if you take this particular one out, you'll see they've got the CDs on with the original. This is what you would have seen on the Please Please Me LP in the UK in terms of labeling for Parlophone. That's another thing you'll see on counterfeits, is that the black of the label doesn't go all the way to the middle. There are round silver bands on some of them where the writing goes across, so you would know immediately this was not a real official release. And as I say, they've got inside here the little cardboard or card inserts to put your CD in, and they talk about using Emitex cloth and, take good care of your microgroove records, etc. Really, really beautifully done. Absolutely gorgeous. So I will leave that aside and show you some other ones. So that was Please Please Me. Particularly interesting in here are the versions of, I think it's Help and rubber sole, which for various reasons they've also included as a bonus, the stereo mixes on the CD after the mono mixes. So the beauty of that is, and I think that's because they'd never been properly remastered for stereo up to that point, but they put them in as a bonus, which means you can actually listen to the mono ones and then go straight onto the stereo ones at the end and hear the difference in them. Because truly, unless you're listening on one speaker, you won't get the true mono effect. But I've listened to all of these and they're fantastic. I mean, the fidelity is incredible. It does make a difference, the mono. Not as much a difference as you would think, but it's actually, you can hear the full power of these records the way they were meant to be recorded. If you take Sgt. Pepper, again, the packaging is fantastic. They've got the original, I mean, this was one of the first, if not the first time, lyrics have been included in the back of an album. They've gone to the trouble, if you open it up. Well, there it is. And I've hardly ever opened these. I played them once, which is crazy, I know. They've got the full colour gatefold inside. And then the absolutely beautiful psychedelic cardboard inner sleeve, and they've even gone to the trouble of reproducing the inserts that were with the original album. Again, a revolutionary idea at the time. So just fantastic. Absolutely love that. And these go then right through Revolver. Still one of my favourite albums of all time. Love it to death. The Magical Mystery Tour set. Again, a gatefold sleeve like the original and includes 24-page full-colour picture book inside. So you're not missing anything by buying these CD versions. So inside it has the booklet. Just fantastic. Just really, really, really great stuff. The filming of I Am the Walrus, still one of the most fantastic promo clips of all time. Magical Mystery Tour certainly had its faults, but that sequence, I mean, where else will you get to see the Beatles playing I Am the Walrus and looking like that? It's just incredible. So yeah, just absolutely gorgeous. The White Album, looking pretty white, or the Beatles, as you can see, as it's officially known. Everyone calls it the White Album, of course, quite rightly, because it's famous for that. And then there's the double CD set of the oddities, let's call them, all the singles, B-sides that were originally made with in mono and not collected in any of those albums. So you've got on there stuff like Love Me Do, original single version, you've got singles, and this was in the UK, of course. I admit they may well have been included in some of the American cut and paste releases where they chopped the British albums up. You've even got the German tracks, Komm, gib mir deine Hand and Sie liebt dich. You got fantastic B-sides like Long Tall Sally, Slow Down, She's a Woman, Bad Boy, all these great records. Yes, it is. Stuff that Beatles tracks that maybe don't get as much attention because they were not on the official albums. You can see some brilliant material on there. So this is a great little extra to have. Really, really love it. So that's let me move back to the camera showing my gorgeous features. So yeah, musically, it is definitely worth listening to those. There is enough of a difference. It's hard to listen to anything in true mono now, of course, because as I say, we've all got surround sound or at the very least stereo speakers. But it's the clarity of the records that I really appreciate. You know, the fact that by this time they'd cleaned them all up, they've removed the compression. And it's not that the originals didn't sound good, but these sound absolutely great for CD. Vinyl is still my all-time preferred favorite. I won't be getting this vinyl box set in a while because it's so expensive, but the CD one, apparently you can still get a few copies of it around. But yeah, the fact that they've cleaned up the sound, the rhythm section sounds tighter, the bass and drums sound fantastic, much punchier and fatter when you listen to it. It's well worth a try. So you might get a real different feel for those earlier tracks by Sergeant Pepper. They were still doing stuff principally in mono. The Beatles, as I say, not that keen on the stereo mixes, certainly in those days. I mean, they've been remastered and remixed since by people like Giles Martin, and they sound a lot better. But like Revolution is a track that John doesn't particularly like in the stereo version, the fast version of Revolution. So anyway, well worth a listen. So that's really about it for the Beatles in Mono CD set. One of the things I'm very, very pleased that I've got in my limited collection is I'm not an expert, I'm just a fan, and as a fan I absolutely adore having that, and the big stereo box set too, which is just a beautiful, beautiful set of CDs to have. I don't think you can buy these mono CDs separately. I believe some of the US LPs, their versions of those exist in mono, but the purely global or British releases are not purchasable separately. I may be wrong, as I say, I'm not an expert, just a fan. So anyway, thank you for listening to this little video about the Beatles in mono. Next time I will try and live up to the name of the series, A Vinyl from the Vault, and return to something from the vinyl collection. So look forward to that. Until then, if you like this, give me a like and a subscribe, and I will see you soon. So till then, keep on rocking.